Welcome back to Critical African Thinkers. How's everyone doing? As you know, this is a place where we examine everything under the microscope of logic to ascertain what is most factual and logically consistent. So, today's topic, which is going to be a very interesting topic, I have two of my favorite people here. I have Stanley and then I have SKC. Welcome to the conversation, guys. So, today we're going to be talking about white supremacy. African Americans, are they emotionally attached to white supremacy? This sort of came up in the Discord today, and SKC made the suggestion that we talk about this. It seems like a recurring theme. So whenever there's a conversation involving Black people, the word white supremacy usually comes up pretty often. So is there an obsession with white supremacy? Is there an emotional attachment to white supremacy for Black people? Right. That's what we're going to be exploring today. And today, Stanley and SKC are going to be taking sort of opposite position on this issue. So it's going to be quite interesting. So I'm going to more or less sit back and just let them have the conversation, then interject when I need to interject for clarifications or for certain questions. So guys, welcome to the stream. How are you doing, Stanley? How are you doing, SKC?
I'm good.
Oh, doing well.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys back on the show. So, first off, we need to start with definitions, right? So that we know we're on the same page, so that we know we're talking about the same thing. We don't want to be having a conversation while our conceptions of, these things is just different. So my first question to you guys would be, what is white supremacy? I need a definition of white supremacy. So maybe SKC will go first. What's your definition of white supremacy? Then Stanley will go after that. Then we'll take the conversation from there.
Yeah, I would actually be interested to see what Stanley has to say on this to lead off. I believe whatever definition of white supremacy that would be standard for this conversation, I think it would probably be more proper for him to define it, and then I will work with that throughout the conversation.
So Stanley, the
Okay.
ball's been passed to you. So over
Well,
to you.
essentially, and I want to make sure we do guardrails. I'm talking specifically about the United States of America. I want to be very focused in how I'm approaching it. Essentially, white supremacy is how America was founded. It was founded way before Black people got here. Um, you can argue that the Spanish in Florida got here first, etc. But I like to start at 1607, and don't know about Roanoke, which was earlier, but it started with English settlers wanting to conquer Indians and take their territory, and don't want to get too deep into the takeover of um, land, Indian, Native American genocides, that sort of thing. But essentially, white supremacy is European, and specifically Northern European, thinking that their civilization is superior and everyone needs to assimilate into it because they set the standard. And I can go deeper, but white supremacy is European culture, Northern European culture specifically, being the standard that everyone else has to measure up to.
Right. So SKC, does that definition work for you?
Yeah, I'm more than happy then to go along with that definition and to use that throughout this discussion.
All right, fantastic. So what do you make of that definition given by Stanley? What can you pass out of it?
Or is that towards me, uh, or is that?
Yeah,
to
yeah, that's
Stanley.
towards you. That's towards you, SKC. What do you make of the definition?
Um, I think that it opens up a lot of there's a lot of responsibilities that go along with that. It dominoes a lot of other subjects, and it links to a lot of other things. Leave it at that. The reason why I say so is okay. If you're stating that white supremacy is basically Europeans impressing their culture on other places and stating that others have to abide by those standards, um, then what happened before white supremacy? That's I kind of wonder how were other nations and people able to exert their will and to conquer others if I mean, would that be defined as those cultures or those peoples um, a definition of their supremacy? Is that would that be the same? I'm just questioning.
Well, I kind of set the guardrails specific to the United States. Do you recall me saying that?
Yeah, I
Okay,
understand.
but let me go ahead and kind of address that before. What happened before white supremacy? There was no white supremacy. That's easy enough.
Okay, so
There were other types of supremacy. There was Islam, there was Roman, there was Greek, there was
mhm.
Persian. Too easy to answer. That's my answer.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering. So all of those are different forms
Do you
of
agree?
supremacy.
Do you agree with my idea of what came before?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay, there were
I'm
other
just trying to
types
get
of
an understanding of
supremacy.
it.
To
Yeah.
boil it down, there were other types of supremacy.
Oh, okay. So, so anytime a any nation or group of people began to, um, I would say, expand their way of government over others, that is a form of supremacy.
Their way of life, their standards, government is part of it. Their religion, Islam. Should I go on?
Okay. Um. So could that not mean that, in a way, supremacy plays a part in the forward progress of humanity?
For those who are supreme, yes.
Okay, so take for
The
instance,
rest of
take for
us,
instance, like,
the process.
well, take for instance, like a lot of the places that were colonized. Um, a lot of those places today are they're more prosperous than the places that have not been colonized.
Really? Name one.
Okay, take for instance, a lot of the places in West Africa, they're more prosperous than East Africa.
Define prosperous because I guess you could say that they were richer than they were when, Congo is better off than when Leopold was chopping off hands. Yeah, I
Well,
agree
I'm not
with
saying
that.
so far as just monetarily. I'm talking about so far as when
I
it comes
think
to other forms,
Congo is better off.
education.
I think Congo, for instance, is better off than they were when King Leopold was running it as his own personal rubber plantation. So, yeah, I agree. They're better off.
Okay, so let me ask a question, Stanley. You talked about, you know, white supremacy is imposing of Northern European standards, right? So my question, and from the explanation you had given earlier, you had said that there were other forms of supremacy that had come before white supremacy. There was Greek supremacy and whatever the hell, right? So my question would be: it seems like this is a human trend. This is a civilizational trend, right? That there are certain people who, at a certain point in time, um, they conquer other peoples and they impose their ideals on those people, right? It's a form of socialization, is a form of progress, human progress, right? So my question would be, what is wrong with that process itself, the process of
Well,
human
that's why I
civilization?
wanted, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the process of human civilization, what is wrong with that process itself?
Nothing particularly. That's why I wanted to limit it to the United States. The rest of them didn't have a U.S. Constitution.
Well, that's very, I would say that's being pernickety or perniskety, as you like to say it.
Yes,
Um,
it is.
yes, yes.
and
But
and
so,
and intentionally so. That's
okay,
why I
so
wanted to limit it to the United States.
So now let's look at white supremacy in the United States. What is what's the danger of white supremacy in the United States? What's the
Scott
problem with
Adams.
no, you have to be much more explicit than just saying Scott Adams. What is the danger of white supremacy? What's the problem with white supremacy in the US?
Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd.
Nah.
Yes,
You have to explain, you have to
literally,
explain it.
literally, Ahmaud Arbery was murdered because the people didn't think that a young black man should be running in their neighborhood and automatically thought he was committing crimes and wanted to corner him. And they cornered him. And um, after they killed him, they almost got away with it. Okay. And yeah, that's just one example. I don't have other examples prepared. I'd have to think and research. The danger is that white supremacy can be toxic and often is.
Okay, so I recall having a conversation with you some time back, and I asked you that um, if a white if a white kid was to go into a predominantly black neighborhood, right, would they be in danger as much as a black kid going into a white neighborhood? And you sort of said
Possibly.
you said yes, possibly. So it's a two-way thing. It's a two-way street. If
No,
this let me finish, right? If the black kid is in as much danger in the white community as the white kid is in as much danger in the black community, then it's almost like you can't then use that incident as an example of white supremacy. It's
I
leveled
can.
out. Then in that sense, you would also have to say that black supremacy comes into play as well. Yes,
No.
if a white kid is in danger
You
in a
want to
black
know the
community,
difference, Charles?
then so what's the difference?
American history.
Yeah, history happened.
And that's a good
With
enough reason. That's a good enough reason to not give a benefit of the doubt. Now, that's my
no,
personal opinion.
I think we have to always
There
give a
are a
benefit of the doubt.
hell of a lot less white kids going into a black neighborhood than there are otherwise. And if you go back just um, 60 years ago, there were white people blowing up black churches in black neighborhoods. I don't see the one to one comparison. I'm not one who will just say, oh, hey, in 2023, there is no history.
Okay, so you see,
And I'm not willing to forget the past. I think it's dangerous. to do so.
I'm
Why?
not. I'm not. I'm
Why?
not asking. Okay.
Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. That is like something they teach you in high school.
So, can you give an
Yeah,
example of
but
that
oh,
happening? People forgetting the past and repeating the mistakes of the past. Can you give an example?
George Floyd. Ahmaud Arbery, the other thing we talked about was the reason the two people, one was a former cop, thought they could get away with it was an 1865 law in Georgia. Now, how's that for bringing the past into the present?
Was
They
that law
thought,
specifically? Was that law
I've
stated that
sent you, I've sent it
was?
to you, I can
Yeah,
send it
you
again.
sent that law to me, but I don't think there was anything racial about it. Was there anything
You
racial
don't think there was
in it?
anything racial
Nope.
about?
Nope. So you have to tell
We
me
need to
if there is.
reread the law.
What was the racial
well,
part? What was the racial part?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I just brought it up. I wasn't prepared to talk about it, but it's there.
All
Should I
right,
look it
go
up
ahead,
now?
SKC. Yeah, you can. SKC, go ahead.
yeah. I mean, I get all of that of what Stanley is bringing up, and all of the names of those who are often brought up by the people of BLM and so forth. My question would be, although it may sound insensitive, I'm just trying to parse out the logic. There has been no system of government on planet Earth that can guarantee the safety of all people at all times. Not one. And I just wonder, at what point do we accept, hey, um, that bad things happen all over the world, and that is, you can't just place that all upon um, a system of governance, because there's
Is
there's
that
there's no such thing as a utopia.
is that what you think my point is? All people should be protected all the time? My argument is that too many people over the course of American history who are black have been abused, have been lynched, have been cheated out of homes. The litany is there. And to your point about all governments, no one is able, which government has had a US Constitution?
Okay, Stanley, let's recenter this conversation, right? Because the topic is, are Black Americans emotionally attached to white supremacy, and it's more specifically speaking for today, right? So we sort of went back to history because we wanted to define what white supremacy is. We've had a definition of white supremacy. We know the historical context of white supremacy. Today, let us put the conversation in today's world. What are the impacts of white supremacy in today's world? What's the danger? Because you
Go
said
back.
something about you said something about white supremacy being European standards, right? And I ask myself, what is wrong with European standards, right? What
And
exactly is the problem with
Not,
European standards, taking into consideration that the US was formed predominantly by Europeans, right? And they are the majority of the population. It naturally follows that their standards somehow would predominate, even without trying to force it
oh,
through.
I mean,
So,
the reason.
I actually would like to play the apologist for Stanley for just a second, because
go
in
ahead.
in in bringing up the historical context first, and I would even add into that, focusing in on only the negative parts of that, I would say, what European domination or white supremacy or the standards that came out of it, that shows right to the title of the show of the emotional attachment to white supremacy. White supremacy, as defined, um, it only takes in the negative, never the positives.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is the emotional attachment you're talking about a fancy way of saying fear?
No.
Okay, then which emotion are Black people tied to? Because I could see why Black people would fear white supremacy. There is literally a historical context for that. If it's not fear of white supremacy, what exactly is the emotional attachment? Could you elaborate?
Sure. I think that there's a wide range of emotions that are attached to white supremacy, typically the negative ones. And just as if a person was to state, you know what, historically, as a historical note, people know that getting struck by lightning typically does not fare well for a human being. Therefore, it's right to be afraid of light. It's like that. That doesn't make any sense. A person would not go through their entire existence wearing a rubberized suit to protect themselves from something that has a very minute chance of affecting or damaging their life. And for to a certain extent, I think that's how a lot of people who use the term or phrase like white supremacy, um, they focus in on the negative instead of being a bit more balanced and understanding that with any form of governance or dominance by one group of it or another, there are good and bad things.
Okay, well, in direct response, when there's a lightning storm, do you go out and golf? You take precautions, don't you?
Precautions? No,
Oh, okay. So you
I
just
just
go
go
out.
about my
You
normal
just go
life.
out as normal in a lightning storm.
Well, typically in a lightning storm, it's raining, so I don't
Uh,
go and do
uh,
normal things that
do
are
you use an
that's
umbrella
inclement weather.
in a? Do you use an umbrella in a lightning storm to protect yourself from the rain?
I don't know. I don't really think about it like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I
I
mean,
don't know that I need. I
I
don't know
could
that I
probably
need to
count.
go farther. I don't
Well,
need to go farther than quote. I didn't think about that.
using your same illustration, could you ask me personally? I probably could count on
Well,
two hands in
I
my
don't know.
entire life of days that I've even been confronted with a lightning storm. So that's what I'm saying so far as the minuteness of it all
Oh, okay.
is
Well,
so
I
small
live
that
in
it's like
Georgia from
who would sit
Vanderbilt.
and remember something like that?
I'm from Savannah, Georgia. This is the year where you get a lightning storm every day. Maybe that's why it's on my mind. Where are you from?
Houston.
Okay, well, I know there are thunderstorms in Houston, right?
Not to where it's to where people are afraid to go do things. They go about their normal day just as people in other places that have natural occurrences of uh, uh, who have natural disasters go about their normal day. If you went over to the West Coast, people have there are earthquakes and so forth, but there are not people that are just stuck in their homes saying there may be an earthquake today. They go about life.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think I understand your point of view. You go about life in a thunderstorm. I suggest to you that your odds of being struck by lightning are going to be increased. And my second point is white supremacy in America. You stand a chance of being affected by white supremacy if you're a black man in America than you do of getting struck by lightning.
Sure. Okay. So
Okay, then we agree.
so what would be the percentage of that, and
No,
at what
not going to
percentage?
play, not going to do that. Don't do
Okay.
percentages. I said likelihood. I'd actually have to do research. Don't have time to do it on YouTube. And by the way, Charles, I put the citizens arrest law in your uh, DM on Discord.
Hmm. Well, another thought about the whole black people being emotionally attached to white supremacy. Would you agree that when the word white supremacy is brought up, that the emotions that come from black people are negative?
No, white supremacy isn't brought up too much by the black people I know. We just know it's there. It's
No, I'm just
usually
saying. I'm just
it's
saying. Whenever
usually
the phrase is
parents
used,
talking to young children about it. Once you've like grown up, we just assume it's there. And to a certain extent, someone like Shelby Steele is right. In 2023, you shouldn't be walking outside worrying about white people, but you better be aware that it's possible and more possible in certain parts of the United States than in other parts. It's called situational awareness. Know what could happen, be aware. That
hmm,
doesn't mean you have to fear it. Doesn't mean you have to be emotional. You just have to be prepared.
that sounds like just having common sense. Take for instance
Yeah,
a
yeah,
person
absolutely.
just like a any black person would not
And I'm
traverse
going to
through
argue
um,
that
gang
black people
territory
need to
without
have
trying to
more.
protect themselves.
Right. Black people need to have more common sense for a variety of reasons. And it's not just white supremacy, by the way. I mean, depending on where you live, you need to be worried about other black people too.
So which
Um,
one is the greater danger?
I don't think, why would I make that kind of comparison? Why would I answer a silly question like that? Depends on where you live.
Because
If you
because
live in
that's
Appalachia, you probably have to worry about the white people. If you live in the ghetto, you probably have to worry about the black people. That's obvious. You said common sense. I'm assuming common sense generates your questions.
right. But the majority of black people in this country do not stay in the Appalachians.
The majority of them know about white supremacy and don't see it as emotional either.
Right.
okay.
The majority of them. Oh, go ahead, Charles. I didn't want
Sorry.
to.
Let me just jump in right quickly, Stanley. So, I had a question I wanted to ask. Right. Okay. So before my question comes back to me, Survival asked the question, and he actually did a super chat. Thank you very much, Survivor, for that. Really, really appreciate the support. So he said, "Hello, gentlemen. I'd like to ask Stanley a hypothetical question. If he could make changes to this quote and unquote white supremacy culture, what would that be and why?" So that question is for you, Stanley. So take it off.
Um, you know who Irony is, right? He thinks we need better white people, better white families. I'd start there. White supremacy is a white people problem, not a black people problem.
Wait. Explain what you mean by you need better white people. Just explain
We
that.
need white people who don't vote for Trump, for instance. Okay, the dude is obviously a racist, but we vote for him anyway.
Yeah, and there are black
Don't
people who
don't
vote
put
for it.
people like that in
Wait,
office.
there are black people who voted for Trump as well.
Yeah, and you know what? Same thing. Don't put a
and
white
and
supremacist.
if I remember, you said clearly that even Joe Biden himself is a racist. So
Yeah.
what do you what's
What
the
was the
point? All the
alternative?
options, so all the options are racist. So what do you do?
Well, you had two options: a
And
crazy
they're all
white
racist.
supremacist or Joe Biden.
Who is also a racist by your standard?
Okay, I think of the two racists, Joe Biden was the lesser of the two evils.
That's you. What if some other person thinks that Joe Biden is the worst of the racists?
Joe Biden won. Why would I care?
Well, your point, you said don't vote. You said your point said don't vote racists into office, right? And then I've proven that even Joe Biden itself himself, the other option that you had is
Okay,
racist as well. So
I see your point.
if racism is the baseline, then there's no point in
Well,
splitting hairs there.
then you could do something like the radical black left and not vote at all.
And where does that leave you in the political process?
I think it leaves you worse off than casting a vote. But the people who absolutely won't vote for racists don't vote. So, I mean, there are people who don't vote, black people.
So so in essence, you're trying to tell me that whether you vote or you don't vote, having better white people will not even happen using the voting process, because after all the options are racist. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that we need better white people, and it's not going to start with a 76-year-old Trump or an 80-year-old Biden. They're already, those potatoes are already baked.
Well, just quickly, and I guess this would be more for the chat and maybe yourself, Charles. But I just ask: do we not understand that such a reaction is emotionally based, not logically based? You're stating we need white people to be better. That you see what I mean? It's not a logical reaction. And so, again, this shows the answer to the titled question: are Black Americans emotionally attached to white
Nope.
supremacy? I would say that this is an example of such because even when survival posed his question, a logical response cannot be given.
Okay, so the logical response is not to expect better. How is that logical? I think it's perfectly logical to expect people to do better. You'd have to do some great sophistry to convince me that it is illogical to expect people to be better.
So for me, what I understand by the emotionality that is attached to white supremacy is, I think that it's brought up too often to account for so many things. When African Americans are having a conversation, right? It's always white supremacy this, it's white supremacy that, it's white supremacy this.
No,
That
it's
is where
not.
I think the emotion comes in. There's
Those are
there
the
I
conversations you see.
Mm.
They're
Yeah,
bill.
most of
They're
the
probably
conversations,
millions.
exactly. So most of the conversations I see, right? Most of the conversations I see, and why is it that most of the conversations I see, the onus is always on white supremacy? White supremacy almost always accounts for every problem, right? It's white. If it's weight, it's white supremacy. If it's infant mortality for black communities, it's white supremacy. If it's everything is explainable by white supremacy, and
But
to
see,
my mind, I don't think it makes that much sense.
I think your reaction is emotional.
Yeah, it is.
So are you being emotional about white supremacy being talked about? Because that's white
Yes,
supremacy.
yes, I am.
Because
So, what's the
there
point?
are millions, if not billions, of conversations that happen between African Americans and white Americans and all sorts of Americans. What you're seeing is like social media.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So,
I mean,
so,
social
so,
media, if you're going to base this sort of thing on what you see on social media, how is that logical?
Good. So now let me answer, right? what I- what I saw of Ahmed Arbery is social media as well, right? I believe that there
Yeah.
are millions and millions of interactions between white people and black people in America that go on very, very well. That there are no people don't die. They live the normal peaceful interactions, right? So to me, the majority of interactions are fairly normal, right? So screaming white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy is just like you are exaggerating a problem, right? I'm not saying that there's no problem there, but it's a massive exaggeration. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And I'm saying your point is hyperbolic.
How is it hyperbolic? You use the same argument.
Again,
You
you are
you
basing
just
this
you
on what
just
you
use the
see
same
on social
argument.
media. I have
Exactly.
conversations with my son every day. White
And what's the
supremacy is not a pervasive topic in me telling him to sweep a floor. There are
so
white
how has
supremacy.
so let's go personal, Stanley. How has white supremacy affected your son in 20 in say in the last 5 years? How has white supremacy affected your son?
It's made him an A student because let's not worry. You know what? The whole expectation. You know who is my biggest influence on expecting a lot from my
So,
son?
hold,
Charles
hold on.
Charles Murray.
Did you just say that white supremacy has improved your child's academic ability?
Yeah, because I've told him.
That's a
Well,
positive
I
thing, right?
told him. Well, let me answer your question. I told him, don't let Charles Murray convince you that black people don't have the same IQ as white people.
But
Show
why
them,
does it
boy.
matter?
Show them white
Why
supremacists.
No, no, no. So but Stanley, you've always made this point that why is it the responsibility of black people to prove to white people that they are anything? So why should you try to use your son to prove Charles Murray wrong? Why should black people have
Oh
to
well,
perform
no, I'm
twice
not.
as hard, right?
The
Why should
reason
they?
I'm not. Um, you could frame it that way. I'm just saying, don't meet the soft bigotry of low expectations.
Which happens.
So listen to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that.
Well, I mean that's the quote that you just used.
So,
So what I'm saying is that Ronald Reagan
so quoting a white,
his white
quoting a
supremacist views are giving you and your son things to live by,
yeah, to prove them wrong.
which makes you better.
Uh, you know what? Whatever motivates you to be better.
Which
Okay,
means you are
And what
okay.
emotional because
and you
you are
know what?
emotional about it because you're essentially
There's nothing
Stanley.
wrong. How is quoting a white supremacist emotional?
Stanley, this is an example of the emotionality of
No, it's
what I
not.
say, quote unquote, some blacks towards white
It
supremacy.
is a
You
hard.
literally you're literally responding to white supremacy in a way that it shapes your life, right? You're responding to it. You want to prove white supremacy wrong, so wrong that you how is that not emotional? How about just live your life? Like don't give a damn, right? I'll
I
be what I
think.
want to be.
I think. I think that's a stretch.
But it isn't. It's not a stretch.
It
Are you
is.
telling me that without white supremacy, you would not have pushed your son to be any better than he currently is?
Well, half of it is a joke. However, um, I don't think it's emotional. I think it is a strategy.
So
Well, I'm not. Don't
work is
think.
saying, Charles, you need to invite this guy to Nigeria so he can experience a different world. I will contribute to the
Okay.
cost.
Well, see, that is such an interesting point. Why would I do that? And what does it have to do with
Yeah,
this
yeah.
conversation?
No, no, no.
Well,
It's just
Well, it's just someone being emotional.
No,
Well,
no.
and
You need to see other parts of the world. I mean, I think you
I've been,
Westerners are so
Charles,
privileged
you
that
know I've been
you
to
have to
other parts of the
manufacture.
world.
Yeah, you've been to Europe. Yeah, you've
Well,
not
I've
been to
been to
other parts of the.
Egypt. Or is
You've been
Egypt
to
not Africa?
you've been to Europe, and you
I've
know,
been to the Middle East. I've been a few places.
yeah, you need to go real
well,
places. You need to come to Africa and see some
I
real shit,
You're
right?
absolutely right.
Yeah,
well, there was
maybe
a
that will
point that I
change your
think it kind
perspective.
of. There was a point that I think it kind of. I'm curious as to what Stanley would have to say. There was a person in the chat, I believe Derek A, and he was responding actually to something that you said, Charles. He said, Charles, because the system of America was founded in white supremacy. The foundation is like a root, it branches out and creates problems in many areas. And my question to that, because I believe, Stanley, you would probably agree with Derek, right?
Actually, go ahead and ask the question because he actually reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier.
Okay, so what should have America been founded on?
Really? All I have to say is America should have been founded on what was written in the Constitution. How about that? And then, better than that, they should have amended their ways literally to the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. So
So,
how about
so
how about how about live by the laws you made?
okay, and I'm just wondering what government on the planet Earth has ever
I
always
don't
lived
do
by the laws that it made. Name one.
I don't do that, Charles. I'm sorry that that
You're
Thomas Sowell. I
you're
don't
asking for a utopia. Then
I don't do Thomas Sowell.
that's not Thomas Sowell. That's
It's
you're asking for a
absolutely
utopia.
Thomas Sowell. It's a bunch of what ifs because what is can't be explained.
Okay, so Stanley, you agree with me that the US has come a long way from 1776 till date, right?
Agree.
Good. So isn't that, progress? Isn't that
Yes.
fulfilling the constitution itself, right? Isn't that a sign that yes, that the country is on the right track, right? SKC is saying, you can't
Yes.
have utopia.
Okay. Here is what I'm seeing. I'm seeing John McWhorter when Obama got elected that America is post racial and being proven miserably wrong. I'm seeing um, I'm seeing DeSantis being anti-education because he doesn't agree with some aspect like CRT. People are acting like we have reached the mountaintop, and I'm seeing complacency. That's what I really fear. I fear white supremacy being complacent because they don't think white supremacy exists or is a small enough problem that it should be ignored. That is my
I, I,
opinion in a nutshell.
I think that these things, like every other thing, should be dealt with on a case by case basis, right? So if there is a clear example that okay, this thing
Okay,
is due to white supremacy, address it. But the sense I
okay.
get is that
So
white
BLM
supremacy is such a problem.
BLM attempted to address a problem. Okay, police brutality affects black people more so than any other group. I'm not talking murder specifically. I'm talking police brutality and Glenn Lowry's, you know, adopted son in his economic study. It's there in black and white. Who's addressing it? Not Glenn Lowry. As a matter of fact, people like Glenn Lowry are avoiding the police brutality issue. The more times you come into contact with police, the higher your chances of harm coming to you. And that's really not even a color thing. So don't tell me about stuff not being addressed. There are plenty of issues out there. Should we address police brutality on a case by case basis when there's qualified immunity?
So
There's
so
some
I,
systemic
this this sounds this sounds very
systemic
interesting.
problems.
Well, this
The
sounds really
police brutality intersecting with qualified immunity is a systemic problem. It's not a case by case, it's a systemic problem.
okay. So using the illustration that you placed forth earlier, you stated about lightning storms, and you said you live in an area where there are a lot of that occurs more than in other places.
It's called the
If you
South. Don't you live in it?
if that occurs, then you take certain precautions, right?
Well, that was my
So
whole point. You don't act like it's normal. You don't act like it's a normal sunny day and the white supremacist lightning isn't going to come and strike you. That was my whole point.
okay, so you just stated that more engagement with the police will cause people to have bad outcomes.
Well, I should say
So
negative,
so
negative.
negative outcomes.
No,
So
no, no.
then why? So
Negative,
then why?
negative engagements with the police is what I meant. Like traffic stops.
Okay. So then why would certain if that is just a known and a given, then shouldn't the
Well,
black
it's not just a
community?
given, it's statistically provable.
Okay, I'm going with you 100%.
Roland
With armed
Fryer.
armed with that information, shouldn't out of all communities, the black community be one to say, whoa, 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 we have to avoid certain forms of behavior that would spotlight police interventions.
Let me ask you a question. Is a traffic stop some sort of behavior?
You tell me.
No, you tell me. You asked the question. I think that a traffic stop for, say, a broken taillight. Are you familiar with the statistic that more black people are stopped after sundown than other parts of the?
How do they recognize black people at night?
That's the point. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the opposite. My bad. Uh,
That's what I'm saying. It's
my
like,
bad. More black people are stopped during the day than at night. That's not coincidence.
okay.
And we're talking traffic stops only.
Yeah, and and and
So
and there's a lot
traffic
of
stops,
other nuance that's
there's
involved
not.
in that. There is. I'll give
There's
you an
not.
example. You said
Traffic
you said
stops are
you
traffic
said
stops.
you said you're here from the South. I grew up here in the South as well, and there was like as you stated, you would have conversations with your son. I received conversations from my father, and one of those conversations was something that a lot of us went through, and one of those conversations was, "Hey, do not ride four deep." With music blasting and so forth because
And
you
why did he
already
tell you
know
that?
that is going to attract.
Why did he tell you that?
We just discussed this.
Now, if
So
four
then
deep, if
what so
four
then so
deep,
then why
let me ask you a question.
wouldn't it be a good idea to avoid that if you're
Four,
worried about your safety?
is it more dangerous for four deep and black blasting music than Four Deep and White in blasting music?
I'm not caring
Who's
about that.
who's more likely to be stopped?
I don't
Just
care. I don't care.
priori, just based on your
I
experience in the South.
I I I don't care.
Okay,
The
then
the
you know
answer
what?
the answer
Maybe
is
that's
this.
the problem.
No.
You can take
The
naked
answer is
logic.
this.
You can
If
take
we're
naked logic, abstract it from real world experience, equals I don't care.
okay, this is the
Being
reason why.
right
This is
is
the reason
not
why.
the end all and the be all.
No, this is the reason why. Say if Charles had a son as well, and wherever he's at, I'm not sure what part of Africa he's in, but he
Nigeria.
knows that. But there is something that's going on in the area, and his sons cannot do stuff that other people can do normally. But it could possibly affect them to where they're going to die.
You just disproved your
He would
whole
still
point.
he would in I'm pretty sure as a father he would say, hey, I understand that you may feel slighted by this, but I don't want you involved in this activity. Well, other people can do it too. That doesn't matter. I would
That
rather you be
bingo,
alive.
bingo.
And what
So,
and
what you're saying is that Black Americans in the South can't do certain things that other demographics can. We
no,
can't do we
that's
can't
not what I'm
do
saying at
what
all.
other people do.
That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm
Well,
saying
then
is
please
that
clarify,
uh, so if I could clarify,
please.
if if they couldn't do what other people were doing and so forth, then they were taking those and they were in fear and taking those precautions and all of those different things, then they would not be out there doing those things.
Okay, let me go back
Okay.
and
So
repeat my question.
let
There's
let me.
certain things that your father, for instance, told you not to do, correct? Correct?
That's what I said.
So
And
Stanley.
why specifically did he tell you this?
Because it was a magnet for a lot of criminality that other people were involved in.
No,
It was
it was a
be
magnet for being suspected of criminality.
right, which a lot of other people and during that time were involved in a lot of criminal activities, and
And
those were the markers for criminal activity.
right. And let's go back to the traffic stop point. In daylight, four black boys blasting music are more likely to be stopped than four white boys blasting music. Would you agree with that, or you think it's statistically equal?
I'm waiting for your
Nope, I
for the
asked you a
point of this.
question. Yes or no?
No. I do think that the four black boys being blasting their music would get pulled over more,
Okay.
Okay. So
and,
I have
and
a question.
and I think that there are good reasons for why that
Traffic,
occurs.
traffic stops daytime.
Right,
I
and
have
I
a
think that there are good reasons for why that occurred.
so I have a question, Stanley.
Oh, go ahead, Charles.
But before my question, let me just say that even in my country, Nigeria, where we're all black, there's a certain type of look that is going to attract more police attention, right? So if you have tattoos, if you are, if you have a certain hairstyle as a young man, or you're dressed a certain type of way, you are going to attract more police. So the second point I'm going to make is this: if and when the police stops a black person, right, disproportionately stops a black person, if the person is not a criminal, if everything goes fine, what happens? What happens?
Okay.
You're driving as a black man, you were stopped by the cops, and you're not a criminal,
Well, let
there's
me put
nothing
it to you
incriminating
this
your
way.
car.
That's a
Then
great
what happens?
question. Statistically, if there's nothing wrong, you'll be fine.
Nothing happens.
However, if you compare a white kid to a black kid and less criminality, nothing wrong, etc., um, black kids are going to come out on the short end of the stick. Not very hard to prove. There are stats because you
I don't get that point.
no no no
I
no no
don't
no no. Let's do
I
a
don't
little
get that point.
extrapolation here.
Yep.
Okay, most of the traffic stops that happen in the day probably they get let go. Statistically, black people get stopped more often.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
will say this in all of this we're taking a tiny slice of certain things because it's almost like saying that the majority of the interactions bad particularly the negative interactions between cops and
A
black
traffic
people
stop is
occur
a negative interaction.
right but those are traffic stops do not make up the majority of those
Not
interactions.
my point.
A
But
lot of
Stanley, see,
a
the
lot of the other
reason.
negative interactions occur
A traffic stop is a
when
negative
actual
interaction.
right, but a lot of the other
Black, white,
a
indifferent
lot
doesn't matter.
a large section of those stops or interactions occur when actual crimes are being committed.
No.
Okay.
No, but we just established something now that, if nothing is wrong with you, if you're not a criminal, if nothing happens, most of the time you get let go. So what's the problem there? Where I think I for me, I think the only
Let me
people who
tell you what
get
the
to be
problem is.
worried are the criminals.
The problem is that you're more likely to get stopped and let go if you're
Well,
black. That is the no,
well,
Charles.
welcome
That
to
is the
life.
problem.
Yes, welcome to life. And I'm sure
No
there are certain.
bullshit.
Let me finish. I'm sure there are certain
Welcome
things
to
that
Black
you're
Life in
more welcome.
America.
You're more likely to benefit as a black person as well, more than a black person, more than a white person. These things, statistics can be any. There is literal. It's literally not possible for statistics to be the same for every group, right? Even if
Okay,
you go from city to
so
city, you go from state to state, these things will differ. So
so essentially what you're saying is black people should get over it.
no, I think it's a tempest in the teapot to
Okay,
borrow your
well, Charles,
words.
you could be right, but not every black person in America agrees with you. I don't agree with you.
Yeah, I know it's
And,
obvious.
and
You don't
given
agree.
and given the historical context, I have a reason not to agree with you.
Yeah, but we can't keep living in history, right? We
Yes,
have
you
to
can,
live.
and we
No,
should be living. We should be
no.
reading more about it
Of course,
because
we should be reading more about history, but we
I
cannot keep
contend,
living in
I
history because this is not
contend
1776.
I contend if more people knew American history, some of these discrepancies would go away.
I don't think so. I
I
think
do.
these. I think these
I think
discrepancies are
I
just.
think
They're just.
absolutely they would.
I think these discrepancies they would be there whether or not it's just
Well, no, 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 no.
the only
There
difference is the only difference is the uh how will I put it, the proportion of it, right? Across time it would always vary. These things are always going to be there, right? So
there
even if you had America all white people, you're still going to have a white group who has a statistical
right. Right.
disadvantage. It's going to be there.
Okay, you're not getting my point. I understand there are always going to be discrepancies. My argument isn't that there are discrepancies. I'm saying the discrepancies are larger than they should be. Historically, they have always been larger than they should
Okay,
be.
so
And
let me take
I don't see an American commitment to resolving it.
So you've made a very bold claim here right now that the
Oh, I
discrepancies
can
are
make it
larger.
and I'm
Are,
comfortable making it.
yeah, yeah. You say they are larger than they should be. So can you
Yes.
give me an example,
Income,
statistically speaking?
income and wealth disparities.
Stanley, come on.
Are they
Stanley,
not
come on.
there? Are
So no, no, wait, wait,
tell
wait, wait,
me,
wait, wait, wait,
tell
Stanley.
me that
Are
the
you telling
average
me that?
white
Wait,
tell,
Stanley. Are you telling me that
yes.
the black people for the same job earn less than white people?
Nope. Not saying
So,
that. I'm
so
looking
what were
at
you saying?
I'm looking at statistics. I'm
You
not
said
looking
income.
individually. I'm looking at statistics. The average white household is 10 times richer than the average black household. And if you
The
take
average
it,
American is probably 10 times richer than the average African. What does that tell you?
well, I don't
That's
care.
that discrimination.
I don't care. I'm talking the
Yeah,
United States.
yeah.
That's why I
So
wanted to limit the scope.
how do you prove that the because you said income, and I asked you specifically, do they end separately? And then you said no, they don't end separately. So why would you put income disparity there? Income disparity is both
Because
people,
it is a
both wait,
larger
both people.
than
No.
necessary
Wealth,
disparity.
I can agree with wealth, and there's explanations for that. But when you're saying income disparity is a problem, then you have to be able to prove that a white person doing the
Dude,
same job
oh, dude,
earns much more than a black person
do
earning the
you
same
need
job.
me to send you the US government statistics?
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
On income,
I've
on income,
sent
not
it to
on
you
wealth
before.
disparity, not
Dude,
on wealth disparity,
dude,
on income disparity.
dude, there's a huge
Yeah,
gap. I don't know the exact
and
number, but there's a
And
huge gap.
and please,
This is
please
US
don't give.
government data.
I know, but please don't
yeah,
give
but
me a wide range. Don't sum up. I want
yeah,
to see specific cases. For this job,
Oh,
this
I'm
guy
going
is
to
a
be,
black person, they're earning
not
less
only am
than
I
this
going to
person.
send you the data, I'm going to put a smiley face on the data.
well, I think some of the issue that you probably will run into, Charles, when parsing out data sets as such, has to do with other factors that a lot of people in these conversations don't want to bring up. One, I would say that is a major factor is family makeup,
Yep,
and it's like, come on, to a people that come from broken families don't get the
yep,
benefit of of passed down income and assets
yep,
and all of those things.
yep.
So
Generational wealth.
so if you have if you have a culture that is not focused on such things, obviously there's going to be some wealth disparages. I mean,
So
So,
it's
but
black
I
people.
think
So
there's a
you're
different. I
basically
have a
saying
different
it's black
explanation.
people's fault.
So no, let me. I think there's a different explanation for the wealth disparity. It's very obvious. I don't. It's so obvious that I
It's
why people
history.
miss. Of course, it's history, right? You don't expect the people who were enslaved for that long and who were discriminated against for that long, right? I mean, black people have been discriminated against in for far longer than they have been free in America. So it's it's expected. What we're seeing today, the wealth disparity, is actually explainable by those factors, right?
Right, right.
Let me finish my point, right? So this is where both the right and the left gets it wrong. The right will think that, oh no, you've been free, so you should naturally catch up. I say no, give it time, you will catch up. And the left says, oh no, it's discrimination. And I'm saying, even if you take away all the discrimination today, if everything is equal in America between black and white people in America today, there would still be wealth disparity because there is a carryover of effects from what happened in the past.
Right. But let me add a little bit more information. Um, in the late 60s to roughly 1974 or 75, huge disparity, but the gap was closing. It was slowly closing, very slowly closing, but it was closing. After like 1978, divergence.
So what
That's
happened?
don't
What
know.
happened
No
1978?
one knows.
Come on, Stanley.
I
No
know.
one
No,
really, no one
seriously,
I,
knows.
no
I I
one
know.
knows.
I know. I know.
Do you
SKC, fill
now?
us in. Fill
Yeah, I
us in.
mean, uh,
I'm listening.
around that time, that's when
But
you
Stanley,
had
you could have
a
said white supremacy happened, right? But you said no one knows. But
Well,
go
you know
ahead,
what? I
SKC.
don't think that white supremacy applies.
well, you had an
Uh,
explosion of single mothers.
You had an explosion of single mothers in the white community too.
Not to the same degree. Not even close.
Okay, and your point would be what?
My point would be that
Okay, here's
you,
my
if
point. There
he asked me
there
a
was an
question and then he cuts me
explosion
off.
in the white community, but their incomes didn't come down.
All right, if I could explain. When you have over 3/4 or close to 3/4 of your populate of your children growing up in single parent households, then yes, there are going to be wealth disparities over time.
Okay,
That could,
and
that would
now,
happen. That would happen very greatly, even in one generation. You had right there
okay,
in
so
1986 where they had the special, I think it was called the disappearing black family. And it was just showing how you had this huge explosion of single parents, and they were believing that um, that living this way was not going to cause any long term issues
I
to their
think
offspring.
that's sure. I'll just accept that on the face value. So essentially, what you're saying is there's a threshold that the black community crossed as far as single parent households, single mother households that white people didn't.
It's not even close.
Okay, that's not my question whether it was close or not. So white people were unaffected by their explosion because they didn't cross the threshold that black people did.
so, for me, I think there are many
No,
things that
please,
come into play
please
here.
let him answer the question. It's a mathematical question.
I'll do you better. I'll let Charles speak, and then I'll go ahead and just bring up the graph so
Well,
you can
I'd
see it
like you
with your
to
own
answer my
eyes.
question.
I'll answer with the graph. Since you said it's
Single
mathematical, since you said
parenthood.
it's a math question, I'll
Yes,
show the data on screen.
good.
Okay, so on Twitter, this conversation came up, and a white guy was basically saying the same thing that, oh, black single motherhood was the cause of the problem in black community. And then I asked him, and then he made a statement that the single motherhood thing is also crossing into the white community. So I asked him, so is that significantly impacting the white community as much as it's impacting the black community? Then he said no. Then I said why? He then said that well, rich people, he said something about wealth, right? So basically he was saying the difference is wealth, right? So for me, I think there are a lot of factors that come into play in this, in whatever it is that African Americans are facing. And I hate single cause narratives. I think that the family breakdown is one of it. But I also think that wealth, historically speaking, is a part of it, right? If people who have more money are going to be able to weather certain adversities, right? Whether it be the loss of a spouse, than people who don't have money. So it's expected. That's a given, right? So we can understand it from that point of view, but we have to put that into the forefront when we're having these kinds of conversations, and not just say, oh, it's because of this. No, there are multiple factors, there are multiplicity of factors, and when you put these things together, you get what you're seeing today. But we need to address them. But I think a lot of the time these things are pushed to the side, and it's what is brought to the fore is, oh, it's white supremacy, oh, it's racism. It may not necessarily be those. It
Okay,
might be
you're
a,
you're
a number of
thinking
factors.
you're
Yeah, I
thinking
agree
white
with that. That
supremacy
is a
in
number of
an
factors.
acute way. Okay, when I say white supremacy, I don't mean acute white supremacy in 2023 necessarily. I'm talking history. Same thing you said. There's a saying that when white people catch a cold, black people get the flu. And you kind of alluded to it, Charles. There are many more things, wealth, family, a bunch of different things that, something negative like COVID affects black people more so than white people. Now, that's just history. Not much we can do about it. Well, not much is going to be done about it. But, the single cause narrative is fine. Okay. And I want to also say, showing me the disparities, SKC, doesn't explain why the disparities occur.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, at the
We know
beginning
the
of it, you
disparities.
stated that it was basically it was a mathematical situation.
And you want to know why
And
my
it,
my
it, it
my
and
question is,
if I
why
could just speak for
isn't
just a
it
second,
affecting white people?
if I could just speak for just a second, I agree with Charles when he states that it's not just a one issue, blame all type of thing. But I will state that uh, a major portion of not being able to pass down wealth and adding to those wealth disparate differences, the graph proves that you can't
Okay,
you
it's
can't you
proving
can't
what
and
you
and and,
already know. My
and
question
it
is, why
and
is
white
there a
people and
disparity?
white people are not making black people not get along with each other
Okay, totally not answering my question. Why is there a disparity? Is my question.
because you have people that are not building families.
And I disagree with that fundamentally.
Okay. And that's why you're looking at the graph.
And the graph,
Everybody else
okay,
on the
what
graph
does the graph tell us?
that you are seeing,
Okay,
you don't
see,
say the
this
same
is the
thing about the
problem.
wealth
You
disparities.
think that the graph is giving me some insight. We know that there are disparities. Don't need a graph to know that. My question, does the graph tell me why? Why are there single parent families overwhelmingly in the black community? Why?
We
And
know
it
that
seems to me you're saying it's because black people can't be more like white people.
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay,
What I'm
then
saying
tell me
is
why.
Stanley,
what I'm saying
Stanley.
is that for whatever reason,
Whatever
the
reason, I'm asking you
the
the reason.
for whatever reason, the coupling of black people has been damaged, and
Why?
and white people are not causing black men and black women to not form families.
Why? That's not my premise. I'm asking, why is there a disparity? I'm not blaming white supremacy. I'm
Yeah,
blaming white history.
and I think that
Whoa, 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 whoa,
the
whoa, whoa, whoa.
major issue
Please,
with that
please,
is
please. I
culture.
heard something. Wait, SKC, I heard something. Stanley, you said you're not blaming white supremacy, you're blaming white history. Nah, I'm not going to allow that goalpost moving like a survivor says.
Darn, almost
You're
got it.
literally moving the goalpost, right? Because we can all agree that there are historical contexts to so many things.
Right,
There are historical impacts and influences
right.
of so many things, right? That still carry on till today, right? But when you say that is quite literally different from saying white supremacy.
Okay,
So
my question to SKC.
you're walking back on certain things, which I don't
No,
think you
it's a
should be.
joke. SKC, essentially, you are saying black people are in this rut because of black culture. Is that correct?
Absolutely,
And I disagree.
So why are they
absolutely.
in that rut? if you disagree.
You're essentially blaming black people for their position in
It's
history.
possible. It's possible.
What
No,
Isn't it possible?
what
Don't people have
to
choices?
add?
Don't people's choices have consequences? Don't people make good choices and bad choices? So if someone makes a bad choice, can you now say, oh no, you can't blame them for it? I
yeah,
think we have to get past the mentality
i-
that we
i-
cannot hold the black community responsible for certain things. I'm not saying it's entirely their fault, but it's not totally
no,
impossible for it to be their fault. So that argument,
I'm
except you
saying,
give me a reason, you give me a proof that it's certainly not their fault, then that argument cannot be taken out of the conversation.
I'm
Sorry, SKC,
saying,
go ahead.
I'm saying
Well,
that blaming black people
hmm,
for the position of black people in 2023, given
okay.
American history, um, I don't agree with that position. Um, I don't agree that there are not systemic problems. I think rich black people are going to be able to help themselves a lot better than poor black people.
And do
I
and the
think
rich
that
and
poor,
the rich black people that they have, like, so let's say they have the generational thing going on. They did that. Why?
I'm not sure I understand your question or your point.
How are they able to remain on top in Black America?
Probably by exploiting other black people.
By exploiting other black people. You think that that's
Well,
the
that's what
major reason why?
capitalism is, right?
No, I don't think that capitalism is exploitation.
That's easy enough to prove. I can send you books.
I
My
think
point,
I think the real reason is that when people complain about white supremacy, particularly black people, and I'll go with the whole idea that a white supremacy exists. I think the
well, I
problem
hope
of
so.
I think the reason of why people are at the bottom is because they didn't buy into it. They're not playing the game by the rules of it, and then want to complain that the rules are against them.
Well, the rules are against them.
The rules the rules state for a majority of things. So take for instance this: if you want to grow as a group, you're going to do the nuclear family thing. Period. In America, that's just a fact. Look at the
Don't
model.
agree
Look
with
at the
that.
quote unquote model minorities.
Statistically, you're right.
So that would be a tool for the game. Hey, I
Now,
need to
my
run it
question
just
for
like this.
you,
These are the plays that work in this game. But then you have
okay,
people who are
and
complaining
the
saying, we don't
game,
want to run those plays, but we don't understand why we're losing.
okay, the game is not going to be won if you are poor. Rich people stand a better chance of thriving if they
Right,
go
and you're
against the rules
and
than
typically
black people, correct?
and by percentage, you're not going to gain wealth by doing
Okay,
single family households.
let me repeat my question. If you are white and in
Am I
single,
right or am I wrong? As a group, you are not going to move
which
into the
group?
wealth category.
Which group?
I don't care any group in
Yes,
America.
right,
You are not going to
right,
move into the wealth category with a bunch of single parent families.
correct.
Okay, so that's just part of the game.
No, you're gonna
You can't say
again.
we have this going on and but we don't have wealth when you're not willing to do the very primary things, which is to build a stable family.
Okay, so the rules apply for everyone. That's your point, correct?
So I have a quote from
Well, no, let him
I
answer.
have a quote
Do the
from
same
Alfred
rules
Imam Alfred
apply to
Mohammed.
everyone?
He said something in one of the conversations that I had with him. He said, "He that is behind has to run faster, or has to run twice as fast." It's just a fact, right? Because no one is going to lend you a helping hand, or at least no one is expected to. It's like it's not it's no one's responsibility, right? You are behind somehow by no fault of yours. It was something in history, right? Some of those challenges or most of those challenges have been taken away, right? Now it's up to you to make up for those disadvantages. And that is why I think the
Okay.
African Americans should
Okay.
focus more on.
Got it. So black people have to work harder to be equal with white people.
Not to be equal, not to be equal,
Oh,
to
I'm
achieve
sorry.
as much.
To get black people have to work harder to achieve some form of parity.
Okay, now let's even go back
No,
to
come on.
this
That's
parity. No, let's go back to this parity thing, right? When you're saying some sort of parity, what's the
so.
population of Black Americans that are poor in America? What's the percentage of Black Americans that are poor?
I think it's roughly 20%, 25%
Good.
are
So
below the
about
poverty line.
80% to 75% of African Americans are not poor, right? They they live well, right? They're living well, right? So
Well,
in your
no,
mind, no,
not
wait,
poor.
let
No,
me
it
finish.
doesn't
In
work
your
that
mind,
way.
right?
Okay,
Parity
you're
is
looking at
when
not
parity is
poor does not mean thriving.
okay. So for white people, is every white group, are they thriving? Are 100% of white people in America thriving?
Okay, no.
Good. So it seems to me that there are poor black people as well as there are poor white people. There are people, white people who are not thriving but not poor. Black people who are not thriving but not poor. There are rich white people and there are rich black people.
So
So
there's
where
so
where
everything
where
is
is the
okay,
parity?
is
So
your point?
where do you want to put the parity? Where's the parity? Where do you fix the parity in all of this?
Okay, maybe that's where we're talking past each other. I don't
Okay.
expect parity tomorrow. I don't necessarily expect parity. My
What is your
question,
metric for
no,
parity?
let me
What's
finish.
your metric? Okay, when you finish
My
answer, what's your
my
metric for parity?
question is why is there not parity? Okay, and I don't think it's just because of single parent households.
We already
As
agreed on
you,
there,
that.
as
there,
you
Not
said,
because
as you
okay,
said, there are
that's
multiple
that's
reasons.
that's easy. That's easy to answer. That is very easy to answer.
Well, then answer. Don't
Parity has never
answer that.
existed on planet Earth.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll just let that one go. Whatever.
no,
It's
don't let it
no.
go.
Why is it to let it
Don't
go?
let it
Parity
go.
has never existed on planet Earth.
Okay. Has
That's why I was
America
asking, what's
has
your metric for
America
parity?
has the American dream always existed on earth?
And your point?
Yes,
My
yes.
point is
What's
that
what's what's the American
my
dream?
point is that this Thomas Sowell everybody did it is just
No, no.
it's a
And
lazy
you're the only
argument.
one who has
It is
mentioned
a
Thomas Sowell.
lazy
The
argument.
only thing that has been discussed here have been people stating that you're asking for perfection.
You know what? Should that mean we don't strive for it?
No one is saying you shouldn't strive for it,
Okay,
right?
then what are we
So
talking about
so
here?
my question is, what
Perfection
is your
perfection
metric
in
for
a
Perfecting?
in
parity?
any
No,
perfection in any human
sir.
system is impossible.
What's your
America
metric
is
for parity?
striving for perfection is the problem.
Perfection in any human
I
system is
think
impossible.
Americans think, I think I conservative people think.
Yes, but perfection in any human system is
And
impossible.
reason they're not
It's never
okay,
existed.
if they're not okay, is because single mothers.
But we just literally said that's not it. So that's not the point of contention here in this discussion. I am not contending that. SKC is not contending that. My question is, what is your metric for parity?
My metric is removing the barriers.
What barriers?
Um, well, let's talk about, say, removing education, banning books, um,
Lord. DeSantis literally
Yeah,
just happened yesterday, right?
yeah. We're
Okay,
in
well, see,
2020.
that's my
We're in
point,
20. We are in
Charles.
2023
Charles,
where
you're not.
kids have access.
Why
They
did it
literally
happen
have
yesterday? It's not supposed to
supercomputers.
happen.
Good Lord.
We're living at a time where kids have
Stanley, there are no
supercomputers in their
barriers.
pockets, and we're talking
There are
about
no
education.
barriers. But
Wow, come
do you
on.
know how interesting, Stanley?
Okay,
There
do
are
you
no
think
barriers.
a
You are proof of
computer,
that.
do you think that the
You are proof of
internet,
that.
do you, SKC, do you think the internet equals education?
No, I did not say that. I
Okay,
said
well,
that
you mentioned
we literally
computers.
a
Just
computer
because you
a
have a
computer is
computer
So
more than the
doesn't mean
internet.
you're learning anything.
not learning CRT and African studies or African American studies is a barrier for any black kid in America. Is that
Let
what
me
you're
put
saying?
it to you this way. If a person in Florida, a high school kid in Florida, is in an AP course, which is essentially a college course, he should be able to learn whatever the AP course teaches.
That's not my point. I'm saying if a black kid is not learning AP studies, is that a barrier for them in their life? There are many people that
Well,
don't
that's
that
not my,
are oblivious
no, it's not,
to
and that's
history or
not my
anything.
point.
No, but you
My
said I
point,
was asking for
my
barriers.
point,
What are the barriers? And you said
my
education, and you
point,
mentioned the Santis. I'm like, the
okay,
Santis
I
literally happened
think
yesterday.
I think a kid who's advanced not being able to learn whatever he or she is able to learn, be it CRT or any other thing, and a governor basically saying that kid shouldn't learn it, that's a barrier.
I don't think it is.
Well, you will agree to disagree. I think
It's not.
kids should
It,
learn. I think kids should learn whatever they're smart enough to learn.
I think so too, but
There should
I
be
don't
no
think
limits,
I don't.
and a
If
governor
so
is not
now
capable of dictating.
if the government had said black kids should not learn anything at all, they shouldn't go to school, they shouldn't learn math, they shouldn't learn science, they shouldn't learn some useful
Well,
skills. I'd say that's a barrier. But
the funny
when
thing is, guess
what's the
when
funny thing?
guess when the government got enlightened enough to allow black kids to learn that stuff.
To learn what stuff?
Math, reading.
When?
Oh, like 1964, it was guaranteed. Before that, it was maybe you learned it, maybe you didn't.
So before that, black kids were not learning anything math or science or what have you.
Yeah, not on par with white kids. Hence, hence, okay.
Oh,
All I'm
Pablo, you
saying,
want the stream link?
SKC,
Sorry. So let me share the
all
stream
I'm
link.
saying is y'all just don't know shit about history. You think it's fun? You think that I'm making up pre civil rights 1964? Everything was equal? Oh, come on, dudes.
Because
This this is
we are not
exactly why
contesting that.
this is
We are
exactly
not
why
contesting that.
DeSantis shouldn't be banning history education because y'all don't know your history.
Stanley, I was asking you what are the barriers today, and you're hopscotching, right? You've not told me one barrier today.
There
What
are
are
no
the barriers?
barriers. Well, no, there are no barriers, but it's harder.
I stopped listening at there are no barriers.
Okay. Well, then that's typical. No barriers means no problem, right?
Stanley. Pablo, you can call in.
Well, at the
I've put the
beginning of
link.
this, I think of your inquiry, you stated what were the barriers, and now he's just stated that there are no barriers. So I don't know where to go from here.
There are no
It just
barriers if
seems
you're rich
more.
and black.
It just seems like an emotional conversation at this point.
No, I'm sorry. I get frustrated with abject ignorance.
Pablo Fresh
I
Escobar, welcome.
get frustrated with people who make bold statements about emotions and white supremacy who don't know the history and the background to back up.
I
that
think we
point.
all know the history.
It's
We,
disturbing.
we're just not
No, we
extrapolating
all
it.
don't know it, Charles.
We
Okay,
do.
Stanley. So let me let me submit to your idea that there are barriers. There are barriers in
Well,
all.
then
Wait a
they're
minute. Wait.
barriers. We
Wait a
agree.
minute. Okay. Wait.
You made
Let
it
me
easy
finish.
for me.
Let me finish. All people face some type of barriers. One of the perfect examples. Wait a minute. One of the perfect examples of how Black American culture has become reprobate and dysfunctional. And since you say it's quote unquote about race, I'm
I
about to.
didn't say that, did
Oh,
I?
well, okay, well, here's why I'm about to say it is
Did I say
about
it, or am I
culture.
being
It is
paraphrased?
about culture, and here's what I'm about to show you. African immigrants, Caribbean immigrants come to this country and outperform domestic American black people, even when they have similar educational backgrounds, if not less, and come from families with more deep poverty than anything experienced here in the United States.
Now,
How
may
are
I
they able
respond?
how are they able to do such a thing with even more barriers? Even an
Different.
ocean between them and
Jesus,
success.
how many words do you need to make this point?
Am I
My
making it or am
response,
I not?
my response is they have a different history.
Okay. One of the different histories well, certainly Caribbeans didn't. They have the same history.
Nope, they don't. That's why it's the Caribbean, and this is the United States.
They have
Different,
slavery that
different
many liberals
histories,
like
different
yourself.
constitution. Should I go on?
Stanley, you've been
And
talking. Are you gonna let me
Pablo,
talk?
I have to throw this in, Pablo, really quickly, and it's a kind of like a sleight of hand type of thing. There are no people on Earth that are going to have histories that match ever.
I
It's a
think,
moot point.
okay, you know what?
And there is no
This
document, no
and
government that can
this
create parity among the historical aspects of various people all from all over the planet.
well,
Can't be
I'm
done.
gonna just say that this is why black conservatives in the black conservative position doesn't get a lot of sympathy in the black community. It lacks nuance. Everybody did it is not an explanation.
Well, we're not claiming quote unquote
No, I
everyone
just
did
heard
it.
people
What
all
what
over the
I'm
world.
what I'm
I
claiming
heard
is
the world. I heard the
what
Caribbean. I
what I'm
heard African immigrants.
what
I'm
I'm
hearing
claiming
a
is
whole lot.
some people look at the opportunities and not the barrier. You are so focused on the barriers that you miss the opportunities.
And I think that you are so focused on the opportunities that you ignore the barriers.
He just
That's just
stated
a
just the
candy
exact
speak.
opposite.
Yes, the exact
He just
opposite.
stated the exact opposite. So, and that's the crazy part about it
In the
because
spirit of candy.
yeah, I know. You just use the
Well,
definition of
no,
the definition, right? But it's weird because when we have these conversations and people say that they're not being emotional, but we can look at the results of things. You have people who are abandoning their ways of life and dropping all to try to move here. And it's like, okay, so all of these other people are trying to race towards white supremacy for what reason? Like,
yeah,
White
well,
supremacy has
all I
net
have to
positives,
say
don't you think? Don't
is
you know?
I'm going to have to just kind of take this conversation for what it is. It's three people who make valid points, but that's about it. Um, Looking under the hood is not something that conservatives tend to do. If everything's good on the surface, then everything's good.
So
I think it.
for me, Stanley, I agree with you that at times conservatives can be, they can be non-nuanced. They can be, they can lack nuance in their analysis. But I don't think that anything we said so far today lacks nuance, right? So the
I
point that
think
Pablo, sorry, let me finish. The point that Pablo brought up, yes, yes, you can. I can make an argument against it and say, yeah, they don't actually have the same history. But I can also make an argument for it and say, well, they are in the same country right now, right? And by how much would you account for their outcome? Would their history, their separate histories, account for their outcome? I think it's negligible, right? I don't think it's as important as the opportunities and other factors that may be happening to them at that particular point in time.
I'm
So
going to
when you
put it to you
dismiss
this
that
way.
kind of argument and say, well, they don't have the same history, so you can't make comparisons. They're
If a
literally all
ni-
Americans at this point in time, and you can make
if an
comparisons.
if an immigrant had come here from Africa in 1950, do you think he would be doing as well as he would be in 2023?
I don't know, but
Okay,
what if
no, you I don't
let me
know.
finish.
The
I don't
answer
know,
is
but
no, he wouldn't.
Those people
what if
exist. You know, some of those people do exist.
No, they don't.
They do, sir. I went to an HBCU. They had professors and scholars who absolutely came from Africa. Absolutely,
That's not my point.
There were
That's
students.
not my point. Maybe you should listen better. If an African immigrant had come here in 1950, would he have the same opportunities as an African immigrant who comes here in 2023 or
but that
1965 for that matter?
1950 is definitely different from today. I mean, what's the point of that?
Right.
Yeah,
So I don't
and
care
yet
about
many still
immigrants.
succeeded,
I
and
This is
yet
what I mean about the historical argument.
Yeah, this is
Different
getting weird. This is
histories.
getting weird. This is getting weird now. Because
Well, weird doesn't, you know what? I'll just leave it there. If it's too weird for you, I'll stop.
no, no. I'm just wondering because we're talking about we go back to the 1950s and then we come up to
Oh,
2023,
for
and and even if you were just simple technologies give
Well,
people
just the
more
simple
more
history of it is
opportunities
that
Yeah,
Africans
when you
were
make the
not
comparison
allowed to
between the two.
immigrate before 1965, is my point.
so
so what's
Stanley,
the point?
could I
What's
tell
the
you a story, Stanley?
Please
Could I tell you?
do.
Okay, so my grandfather Stanley had a sixth grade education. He was a plumber. He was also a Marine. He was one of the first black Marines in the Marine Corps in World War II. He had two children, my mother, Brenda, and my uncle, uh, Ronnie. Even though he had a sixth grade education, he began to see, the civil rights movement happening, and all of these cultural changes on the horizon. Do you think he said it was enough for his children just to get a high school education, or do you think he wanted to see to it that they had more because he saw more opportunities on the horizons for
Well,
them
can you
rather than looking at
can
his
you
own deprivation? Go ahead.
is your point that black people in spite of, because I
Is
hello.
he Borging?
Yeah, you
yeah,
froze for a
you're
second.
cutting off, Stanley.
No, I agree that black people, despite huge advantages, black Americans, despite huge advantages, have been successful and thrived. I agree with that.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened to his two children. He paid cash for his house that he owned. He paid cash for their educations for them to go to college. The man worked hard, worked himself to death, died of a heart attack going to look at somebody's plumbing, or at, excuse me, the pool at the local army base that he worked at. So he sent my mother to college, who became a school teacher and also got a master's degree. He sent my uncle to college, who became an engineer for NASA. So the reason they were able to succeed is because someone did not look at the obstacles, they saw the opportunities. and and
Okay.
and and
Okay.
and
Well, let me. You do realize that I'm an African American from Savannah, Georgia, right?
all right.
Okay, so I'm familiar with how Black people have thrived and sacrificed so their kids could have college educations. I'm intimately familiar with that.
And one of the things I
My
see from those who
question,
fail,
my
Stanley,
question is why are there still obstacles in 2023?
one
Not
of
that
the
there were obstacles. I'm saying there shouldn't be, and I'm saying there's systemic reasons. And why are we not addressing those systemic reasons?
well, first you would have to delineate what specific obstacles are you talking about. If you're talking about financial, there are
Oh,
more
and by the
financial.
way,
Wait a minute. There are more financial instruments available to people now than they ever were for my grandfather to send his children to college. Way more, way more
I,
opportunities to do so.
yes,
There's
things are
Pell
better.
Grants. There are Pell Grants. There are loans. There are scholarships. There's a myriad of things available for people to improve themselves, not only for a 4-year college degree, but for trade schools and the like. So
Okay, and
anything at
my
this point,
point,
wait. So anything at this point, Stanley, is excuse making,
mm,
because the tools are available for your success. People are
well,
making
I mean,
millions of dollars from their cell phones, Stanley.
I've
There's no
often
excuse.
said that, there are roadblocks, not necessarily, they can all be overcome. That's not my argument.
So the
My
blocks are in
argument,
their mind. The
my
blocks are in their
argument
thinking. The blocks are in their
No,
behavior pattern.
you must have come in late because my argument is why are there still obstacles?
Because the
because
obstacles are internal to you.
Because of white supremacy and systemic white
right,
supremacy.
right,
Overcome the
right. He
obstacles.
and he's I'm
Of course, we can overcome the obstacles. Why are
Stanley
there
has won me
obstacles?
over.
Is my point.
Stanley has won me over, man. He's won me over.
No, I
The
haven't.
answer, yeah, the answer to it is that all of those roadblocks and different things, they would go away if we had better white people. So we
No,
so if we
I
just
think.
make the white
Well,
people better, then
but
all of the black people problems would be
your
better.
argument is they would go away if there were better Black people.
No, your argument is that
No,
what you won me over
your
to. We
argument
need
is
better
that
white
there were
people.
no
We
single
need
mother homes in the Black
we need
community,
great we need great white people.
and we symbolically pulled up our pants.
No, no, I'm
Obstacles
you
would
have
go
won me
away.
over. You have won me over. I'm saying I agree with you. We need better white people. I
Well,
think that we should march. I
I
think we should
don't
march with
agree with
signs that
you.
say, "Please, white people, be better to us."
You know what? Um, that's a fair question. Why aren't they better?
That's what I'm saying is we should march in the streets with signs that say, "White people, please be better to us."
Well, if that's your solution, wouldn't be mine.
Well,
I'm a, I'm a,
how can we
they
get the
didn't
white
pay
people to be
attention.
better?
They didn't pay attention when we marched in 2020 or we marched in 1963. Why would they pay attention now?
Well, that's why I'm saying I think we should move into your original argument where we stated that where you stated in position that we need better white people, and I agree with you on that. So now the
Well,
question is
actually, I was praised on
how do we make better white people?
by stop being so emotional about white supremacy, maybe.
So we
Who,
are emotional about
who,
white supremacy.
I'm sorry, what?
So
Who
you're
should
saying that
stop
we
being?
are emotional about white supremacy?
No, I'm quoting you. I think it's a ridiculous statement. I think white people are emotional about white supremacy. They want to keep it.
Well, I don't know, man, Stanley, but I I sort of expected more from you when I asked the question, "What are the obstacles?" And I really didn't get.
Well, I think the obstacles are not being absolutely sure when you send your kid somewhere that they're going to come back alive. Ahmaud Arbery. I think I
Ahmad
think
Arbery's parents sent him.
I think when we
Ahmad
talk
Arbery's sent
about
him.
encounters with the police, knowing that you're statistically, if you're a black male especially, knowing that you stand a better chance of getting unfair treatment than other demographic groups, etc. I think when you go back and you look at things like public schools, knowing that schools in an inner city public school will probably not have the same resources, as good a teachers, etc., as say someone, some school out in the suburbs. That's education. If I sat here for 5 minutes, I could come up with more, but I mean, the systemic problems are there. Let's go back to, crime rates. A black person is more likely to go to jail for, say, cocaine. Now, maybe this was back during the 80s and early 90s, but there were obvious, for the same drug, different forms, there were black people who got way stiffer sentences than white people for the
How about
same
don't do
drug.
drugs in the first place?
You
How
asked
about
me,
don't do drugs?
okay, well, see,
No, that's not the answer. We
don't
need
agree.
better white people to not
You know
punish the
what?
black people.
Obviously, we need some better black people too.
Yeah.
So, my point is, you shouldn't be doing drugs in the first place. That's a woulda, shoulda, coulda. It's not dealing with the actual problem. You're dealing with the problem tomorrow, or a week, or a year from now. You're not dealing with the immediate problem.
So I
So
actually agree
Stanley,
with you. I agree with you if there is a disparity in sentencing for the same crimes. I think that's a problem that needs to be addressed. But I'm still not sold on that that's happening today. I
now
Okay,
I'm a criminal
Charles,
justice
do
major. That
you
was
ever go and actually read
I
US
actually do,
government
Stanley.
statistics?
Stanley, I'm a criminal justice major. I'm glad that you brought up the '94 crime bill that
I
introduced
didn't bring up the 94 crime bill.
but that was what introduced crack cocaine versus powder cocaine that talked about the sentencing disparities that
Well, no, it
just
introduced the
you just
sentencing, not the crack cocaine.
crack cocaine.
You mean the sentencing?
Right. So the '94 crime bill, which was introduced into legislation by our current president,
He
and
wasn't
signed
president then, he was Senator Joe Biden then.
and signed by Bill Clinton.
Okay, let's go ahead and get our terms correct.
So
The bill was not introduced by our
it was
current
sponsored.
president. It was introduced by then Senator Biden.
Well, yes, when he was, I said our now current president, who was then a senator. That there's
Uh,
nothing inaccurate about what
okay.
I said.
I'm a stickler for actual, like, words.
It was introduced by our current president while he was a sitting
No,
senator.
it was not introduced by our current president.
Charles is
It
something
was
else.
introduced. Biden was not president. He
No, he
didn't
was a senator,
introduce
and
the
Bill
bill.
Clinton was the
He did
president.
not introduce the bill while
Okay.
he's our current president.
No,
That's my point.
he
but
introduced the bill while a senator. I
Thank
don't think I
you.
stuttered.
Thank you.
So the reason that it was introduced was because the members of the Black Caucus the members of the Black Caucus at the time pressed them to do so. Why? Because their constituents and Kwesi Mfuma, uh, uh,
Infumi.
Mfume, uh, was the chairman of the Black Caucus at the time, was quoted as saying, at that time, their constituents in many of these middle class, black and working class neighborhoods were ringing their phones off the hook to do something about the crime in their neighborhoods, mostly centered around the
Right.
crack cocaine epidemic.
Let me know when
And
you're
they
done so I
welcomed
can
it.
ask a
Wait,
counter question.
and they welcomed it when it was passed.
So let me ask you a question. Was that the right thing to do?
It was what they wanted, is what
No,
I'm
that's
pointing out
not
to you.
my
It
question.
was it was
Was it the
requested
right thing
by
to
the people
do?
who were most affected, which were black
Was
people.
it the right thing to do in hindsight?
Well, that depends on your feelings about the matter. But I tell you
No,
what it
it
did do.
doesn't. It
It
depends
elim-
on your
it
feelings. I'm asking you
drastically
the
locked up
question.
and eliminated
Well,
criminals
well,
in black
well, well,
communities.
whatever happened, the black people at that time, they overrode white supremacy to get what they wanted done.
No, they collaborated. But my question is, just because black people asked for it made it right?
We're not talking about right or wrong here.
Well,
I
no,
don't think
I
that's the
am
point of
though.
the
And
conversation.
my question is,
If they're
then
breaking the
Senator
law, yes,
Biden,
it's right.
the black,
Yes, if they
see,
are
this
breaking
is
the
the
law,
real
it is
problem I
correct.
have. Dude, my
Yes, it's right.
question is, just because
Yes,
black people wanted it means it was the
yes.
right thing to do?
If a law is passed and you break it,
Hey,
you receive
check,
the consequences therein.
Okay, see,
Yes,
check
dude,
this out, Pablo. Check
dude,
this out, Pablo.
dude,
The weird thing
because
about this
black
situation
people
is
wanted it makes it
we're talking
right.
about right and wrong, or when we're talking about citizens choosing what they wanted at that time.
Okay, so
Citizens voting for
that
something
is
that they wanted,
important,
and we're talking about right and wrong.
dude.
They had the right to
Citizens,
choose what they wanted.
citizens wanted black slaves 200 years ago. Were they right?
Oh my!
That's a
Citizens wanted it.
stretch. That's a
Ooh,
and
we
there were
Let's
black
moonwalked. We
not
slave
do
owners,
that.
moonwalked.
Stanley.
You
And there
know
were
what?
black slave owners.
You
Yes, there
guys,
were.
this is exactly why conservatives are just ridiculous.
Who's the conservative here?
Um, Not you, not me.
These are inconvenient facts for Stanley. That
No, they
that
are perfect. You want to know?
they are inconvenient.
They are perfect examples. Black people can be wrong. Surely a black conservative would agree with that. They
And it
don't get
was
married and they
black
don't pull up
liberals
their pants.
and it was liberals that chose the 94 crime bill.
Oh,
That
so
so
black liberals,
they pushed
that
for it.
makes a
Yes, they
difference?
did. Yes, they
Were the
did.
black liberals right?
Yes, they did. If
Were
if
the
it
black liberals
rid their
correct?
neighborhoods of crime and criminals, then yes.
And guess what? There's still crime.
Of course,
There's
there's
no
still
more
crime.
crack dealing, that's for sure. Crack
Well,
is out
that's
of the
because
picture.
they found a replacement.
And here we go. This is the point of where people want like these utopian solutions. It's like at what point on planet Earth has there not been crime?
Okay.
What law has ever abolished all crime?
And you know what? All problems get
What government
solved.
has ever got rid of
The
all
best
crime?
way to the best way to solve a problem is to ignore it because everyone has
Hey,
problems.
hey, hey! Didn't they solve crime in that place called Chaz during the
Yeah,
blackouts?
there was even crime there, and that was
No,
created
no, no,
by
no.
the
I thought they solved crime there, and there was a utopia. They ushered in a utopia in that
What is
place
that?
where everything was.
if you call your utopia people getting sexually violated and robbed and murdered. I
Well,
mean, so
the interesting
But
thing,
at least there wasn't white supremacy. So
well, actually there was, but I was ready for SKC to blame Chaz on black people and their degeneracy.
no, I think you have me pegged wrong in trying to just toss everything to black people as if everything is on their backs. But I will state that
Most of it is.
a lot of the issues in the black community have to do with cultural issues, and until those cultural issues are done, there are no
Well,
um, you can't legislate
I
things
don't
like family.
I don't think I don't think that the cultural degeneracy, and you didn't use the word degeneracy, I understand. That's my word. I don't think it's limited to the black community. My thing is that it seems to affect the black community more. And my question is, why is that?
isn't it
Uh,
obvious? Isn't it
yeah,
What's
obvious?
the obvious? Charles,
Poor
what's the
people.
obvious about it?
It's obvious that poor people deal when they are faced with certain challenges. The outcomes is different from rich people, and on average, black people are poorer than white people. Given the historical context, that is not wild to
And
see why that is. That is the more reason why the black community, knowing the disproportionate impact these negative behaviors would have on their communities, should try to avoid these things. You can't be
but
compounding
see,
your problems.
I don't buy that moral suasion thing. We have to be saintlier than everybody else.
You literally talk to your son to be better, to
Well,
have
you know
good
what? But
grades.
that's me. Does do I
So
let me ask you a question.
what
Do
stops
I
other
expect
black families
everyone to
from
do it?
what stops other black fathers from telling that to their kids? Why is that such a wild thing?
You know what? I would like everyone to do it, but I'm not about to go out and tell people they should do it. I'm not a preacher.
Well, I
hmm
think you should tell them that they should do it.
I'm not about to walk down the street and knock on a door and tell some black dude,
I don't think there's anybody
you,
going
you
about the street.
need to be a better father. I leave
It
that for
isn't
you and
itself
SKC.
isn't it self-evident that you need to be a better father? Isn't it self-evident? And if you are not a better father, isn't that your own fault?
Now, I will agree that, excuse me, you get what you get. I'm not saying, you know, bad decisions don't lead to, better outcomes. But if you step back and look at it systemically, I just think that black people over, the 400
Oh,
years,
Clue, so sorry. I didn't know you were there. So sorry.
I,
huh.
I
Who had
just
been
think,
in there?
I
Oh,
just
you're
think,
good.
More
You're
conclude.
good.
I just think that I think when the time, say from 1965 to, the Bakke decision in 78, was kind of like a golden time. And I think black people didn't take advantage of some opportunities there. My concern is that white supremacy still exists and always will. I'm not, saying
No,
it's going
no,
to
no,
go
it doesn't.
away.
It doesn't. No,
I'm saying
no.
that we Americans are too willing, black, white, and indifferent, are too willing to just go, hey, there's no problem anymore.
How are whites supreme in today's in 2023?
You know what? I'm not going to even bother going
That's a
over it.
question.
Read the newspapers.
Okay, give me an example of whites being
Replay the
supreme.
show.
Just give me an example. I mean, if it exists, you can give me an example, right? Whites being supreme in 2023. Let's go.
I'm not talking about whites individually. I'm talking more systems. but
Systems
I
like what?
can give you individual examples.
Okay, I'm listening.
Most of them you've seen on TV over the past couple of years.
Such as,
Floyd, Arbery,
it's not white supremacy.
Breonna
Those are
Taylor.
dudes that did not
Just
comply.
Jesus. This is easy.
They did not
Well,
comply. Did you see the
well,
They
whole
didn't
Clue.
what?
body cam
I'm
footage
sorry, they
of
didn't
George
what?
Floyd? The body cam footage
Clue.
of George Floyd. Did you see the whole thing or did you just watch the
I
cell
saw the
phone?
trial. I saw
I'm
the
talking
whole
about the
trial.
footage, the
I saw the
evidence.
videos they showed at the trial,
And
etc.
how come racism wasn't brought up in the trial not one time?
Because racism, you couldn't prove it. You could prove a
So if you
knee
couldn't
on a
prove
neck.
it, doesn't exist. It didn't exist in
Okay,
that particular
so if you
situation,
can't prove something, it doesn't exist.
according to the law.
Okay, well, I'm not
You
talking the
brought up
law.
the
I'm
trial.
not talking the law.
You
Well,
brought up the trial.
I'm about to head out because I got to get with my family. Charles, thank you for having me on. Stanley, I
Yes,
really
Casey.
appreciate the
Thanks
conversation.
for coming.
Take it
Pablo,
easy,
you know
SKC.
All
where to
right,
catch
man.
me. My final
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh yeah, my final question that I just wanted to know from everyone. I'll just listen in to the answer. Is what portion of white supremacy have black people got over without the help of white people? Or I should ask, or to clarify, how has black people's position in America ever improved without the help of white people?
Oh, you're gonna leave now?
Yeah, you should stay for this. I want to hear this response.
I'll
This
hang
is
out
gold.
for 10 more minutes. I'm curious.
When
What
you like to use the world as your example, when has 13% of a population changed anything if they weren't terribly rich and had a bunch of guns?
Well,
Of
Jews.
course, we need white people. Hence my point, we need better white people.
so white supremacy can really only be overcome with white people,
Yes. Hence the word white.
right? So you need white people to make black people's lives better.
I need white people to be better white people, then everything else will fall in place. Don't
You
put
need
your
them.
knee,
You need
Stop laughing, Charles. It's not funny.
don't
It's
put,
serious.
don't
you
put,
need
don't put your knee on a black man's neck.
you
Don't
need them
shoot,
you need
don't
them to
shoot a
white
kid.
her.
Yeah, well, don't shoot a kid just because he's running through your neighborhood. I expect black incarceration to be relatively commiserate with other demographic groups. Doesn't have to be perfectly equal, but it shouldn't be exponentially higher, etc.
But what that's assuming that the rates of
Well, that's assuming we have
criminality,
better white people.
no, that's assuming that the
So
rates of
we
criminality
need to make
is commensurate within the groups. So should we have to now try to balance out, the number
Okay.
of people in prisons
Well, you
because
know
they
what,
want to?
Charles? That's a good point. Let's not make it exponentially higher. If the difference is exponential, I suggest that's a problem.
No, I think if there's real
I'm not
discrimination
going
going
to
in there,
accept
that's
exponentially
that's where
higher.
I would have a problem. But if 100 black people are incarcerated and 100 of them deserve to be there, and two white people are incarcerated and
But
two
see,
of them
that's the
deserve to be there,
problem.
I don't have a
That's the
problem with that.
problem.
I'll only have a problem if out of the 100 black people, 50 of them or 20 or
Now,
even two
are
of them
you
were incarcerated falsely or wrongly. I would have a
are you
problem with that one.
saying
That makes
are
sense.
you saying that every black person deserves life or to be in prison?
No, no,
Close,
Okay, then
close,
what is your
close to
point?
every.
Why bring up 100 guilty people
well,
when the
well
argument
I,
doesn't apply?
and I'm glad that Derek A is in the chat because I think that that kind of goes to the ultimate solution when it comes to the whole white supremacy thing. He says white supremacy is solved once white people acknowledge slavery, institutional racism is gone, and reparations are paid. Then we have progressed towards true equality. And basically, what that equates to is that give the 13% the power in America, let them rule things, and then everything will be equal.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Because that's what it really boils down to.
No, it doesn't.
So you basically want the majority population to give all of these things that was listed in that guy's comment.
No, I haven't read the comment and don't really care about it. My point is that I think that
Comment is up.
I think that not electing people like Donald Trump would go a long way to solving our problems.
What did Donald Trump do
Donald
to
Trump
black
was
people?
literally a racist.
Yeah, what did he
If you
do?
go back and you look at his history,
What did
he's
he do?
literally paid millions of dollars in fines for being a racist landlord. Go back and look it up.
Okay, who has he held back as a
Who
president?
knows?
As a
I'm
president,
not a
I'm talking about
Donald
the
Trump
last.
expert.
I'm talking about from 2016 into 2020.
See, that's the problem. That's
What did
the
he
problem.
do that held black people
We,
back?
as Americans, we don't do history. If it didn't
Oh,
happen
I
yesterday,
think
it
we,
didn't
I think
happen.
we,
I'm asking a
I
pretty
think we
decent
do
question.
history.
I
I think we
we
do
don't.
history.
I
Yeah.
think
I
we
think we
don't.
do.
400 years.
I think we
Everybody
don't.
says 400.
And I
Everybody says
think if
Black
we
Wall
elect
Street.
Donald,
Everybody
I
says
think if
Emmett
we
Till.
elect
That's history.
DeSantis, we will do less history. No, that's a joke.
Okay.
Stanley.
Well, anyway, man, Charles, I enjoyed it. Stanley, man, great conversation. I'm
We should do this
I'm
again.
curious as to why you feel certain ways.
Okay, we
You got to
should
stay
have
10
that
more minutes,
conversation
SKT.
on a Discord. And I'll just preface it. I was a naval officer. I went to like first through 12th to Catholic schools. I went to school with white people. Um, I have experience.
Okay, I understand that, but
So
even
I'm not whistling.
just looking.
I'm not whistling Dixie.
Okay, I understand that what you just stated, but you know that even with everything that you just stated, to throw out a blanket comment like that is illogical.
No, it's not.
Okay, let me show you the illogic in it.
Oh, please do.
Okay, let's say
You've
Stanley
been
here.
whipping me with logic all along.
Let's say Stanley here exactly as he stated, and I'm going to do it times 10. Let's say in Stanley's life, with going to these schools, to the Naval Academy, and all of his
But
other
I
things that he
didn't
has,
go to the
that he
academy.
to whatever you went to, that you've been around all of these white people,
University of
and let
Georgia, baby.
okay, and let's say in your lifetime you have met 100,000 white people. What percentage of that is of just America?
What?
Let's say in your lifetime you have met 100,000 white people, and you know the intimate details of each one of those 100,000 people. What
Let me ask
percentage
you a
of that?
question.
What percentage
Do
of that
you
would
think
be of the entire population of America?
I, not a
It's
very
not
high
even
percentage?
1%. It's not even 1%.
let me
But you
ask
can
you a
throw
question.
out there, "Oh, I know the minds of white people."
Do you
It's a
think
ridiculous statement to stand on.
do do you really think that I'm basing this just on personal interactions?
No, I'm stating if you were to multiply that by 10, it still would be A
And
fraction
you
of the
are,
people in the country.
again, let me ask you the question. Do you think let's say I met a million white people. Do you think I'm basing my thinking on a million personal interactions?
You're the one that brought up your interactions as
Oh,
proof as
well,
to why you
maybe next
believe what
time
you believed.
I'll just list the books instead of mentioning my experience.
Even if you were to mention the books that you have read, those are only a fraction of all of the books that have been printed in America. It's like
You know what?
there's no way
This
that one person if even if they were to read a page every minute and meet people simultaneously every minute, it's no way for
there's
you to
no
have
reason
that knowledge base of the minds of all white people in America. It's impossible.
there's no reason to go to school. There's no reason to do a history book. Gosh,
Going to
nothing,
school and doing
nothing,
and doing hist and
nothing
he and
is
reading
good
history
enough.
books does not make one a mind reader.
And you know
There's no
what?
amount of schooling that can accomplish that.
And your point would be what?
No,
My point
Jesus.
is your original statement. You stated, I've been around here, I've
Well,
seen
that's
this, I've
one of the.
interacted this, I know these
Oh,
people.
oh,
You
that's
cannot know those people. It's
you're really
impossible.
gonna you. That's just one reason. I'm sorry, I wasn't basing everything I've said on this cast on
It would
one white people.
if it was stated in the opposite direction, black people would say that that's racist. That black people
You
are
know
so
what?
diverse and that they're so different from one another, and they're
Well,
not a
you did
monolith,
it.
and one
You
white person can't
you
just
did
know
it.
all black people.
You did it. You talked about black culture. You met every single black person? Have you met every single black single mother? You're basing your opinions on it, on personal interactions or books or whatever. Why
Nope,
is it
not doing
why
that.
is it you can do it about black people and I can't for white people? Tell
All
me.
right, all right.
That's a
This
good
is
question.
this is my final thing.
It should be.
When I showed you the graph and the data, you were
Mhm.
stating what are some of the reasons why there was
Those
this
weren't reasons, those
disparities.
were
And
results.
when I showed you the data, I said this is the reason. This is one of the reasons.
And I don't accept your reason.
You have people who are not forming intact, stable family units, and that is part of the reason of why you have wealth gaps.
You don't understand your own argument. Okay, just because there are disparities doesn't explain why the disparities happened. I don't agree with your premise as to why they're happening. So thanks for the data. Those are the
Right,
results.
but I agreed with you on why they happening. That's why I
Oh
don't
no,
understand why you keep asking me that. I agreed with you. The reason why there were those disparities and so forth in the family units and all of that is because we need greater white people.
yeah, well, you know what?
If we had
Even
greater white
that
people, black men and
we
black women
Stop
would get
laughing,
along with each
Charles.
other
we
and form intact families. Because if the
but
white
you
people
want to know
were
why?
greater, then they would show black people how to do that at a greater clip.
The best,
But since
the best
but because they
infancy.
have failed to do that in this white supremacy country, then that is why you have these black people failing to get along with one another.
And the best
They
you can
need
do,
white daddy and white mama to show them how to form families.
yeah, that proves everything I thought. Imitating a dumb joke is the way you actually explain your point. I get it.
Okay. Oh,
Why?
where'd he go?
Yeah, he said he was going to leave soon, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing he.
Stanley, let's go back to this body cam footage because I want to delve into that.
What body
Okay,
cam footage?
George Floyd. The body cam footage shows zero racism. Zero.
Okay, you're beating a dead horse. We can't prove racism. We can prove murder. You
But
have
the
to draw a
body cam footage
historical
doesn't show
context.
murder.
Uh, a body cam is not going to prove racism. I think we probably agree on that.
Well, it suggests that racism wasn't involved.
It doesn't suggest anything. It
It was a
shows
police
pictures.
officer and his perpetrator. It had nothing to
Well,
do with
that's
skin.
your conclusion. I'm saying a body cam can't prove racism.
And if you look at the body cam footage,
He's
the
going to
dude
beat this dead
said
horse.
he couldn't breathe when he was sitting in the car. So that was his catchphrase, I can't breathe. Not that he had a knee on his neck. He said it in the car when there was no knee on his neck.
Well, how can I respond to that? I'm not going to be able to undo your point.
You brought up George Floyd as an
Yep.
instance of white supremacy. And the
Yeah.
body
murder
cam
robbery,
footage
yeah.
I'm
tells a
basing it.
different story.
Okay. God. Oh man, you guys are just totally frustrating.
I'm just speaking about the
No,
body cam
you're
footage.
just not getting it. Is the point?
What am I not
Okay.
getting, sir?
I'm basing the racism on the history of America. That's good enough for me.
You brought up George Floyd as an
the,
example.
the historical relationship between policing in the black community is what I'm basing it on. It's my opinion. It's a lot of opinions. Body cam footage is not what I'm using for evidence. Does this
You
clear
brought
it
you
up?
brought up
Does
you brought
this
up George
clear- God
Floyd.
damn it, dude.
Rashad Brooks. I think you brought him up
I
too.
didn't
Ahmaud
bring up
Arbery.
Rashad Brooks.
I mean
I
Ahmaud
didn't bring up
Arbery.
Rashad Brooks.
Ahmaud
Ahmaud
Arbery.
Arbery.
Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah.
Okay, that's racism.
Uh, did you watch the trial?
I'm asking a question.
No,
Is it
I'm
racism?
asking you, did you watch the trial? If you want evidence of racism, watch the trial. All the racist stuff came out during the trial. I suggest you watch it.
So if he was a white guy that did the
No,
same
I'm
thing
saying
that
watch the
Ahmaud did,
trial.
he would be alive? Is that what you're saying?
Dude, they got convicted of federal hate crimes after the state found them guilty based on evidence.
So that means
They
were doing the brothers were doing hate crime
You can
then.
turn this any way you want.
I'm not
Watch
turning,
the
I'm
trial.
just asking a question, sir.
Racism is a lot easier to prove in the Arbery case.
I don't see it. I really don't.
Well, then watch the trial. You will see it, or maybe you won't.
I just don't see it. I don't see how
Watch
white
the
supremacy
trial
exists
is
in
all I can say.
2023.
You don't see it because you didn't watch the trial.
I don't see how white
You
supremacy
didn't
exists
see it
today.
because you didn't watch the trial. Of course, you don't see it. I agree. You don't see it.
So Stanley, are you being held back by whites?
Generally not.
Okay, you're cool. Charles, are you being held back by whites?
Hey, I'm in Africa here. No whites here.
Hey, you never know. I just want to know what this 2023
and
white
once
supremacy
again,
is so I can tackle them. That's
No
all.
one's arguing. I'm not saying individual whites, except in
Okay, you're saying
some
systemic.
specific cases. There, if you get killed by a racist white cop, yeah, you've been held back by whites. But that's not. I mean, this isn't 1892.
You're saying it's systemic. It's white systems, right?
I'm saying it's cultural, whichever system you want to choose.
Okay, so what white system is holding blacks back in 2023?
Ugh.
So I can go after them personally.
You know
Because
what?
You keep bringing up
All I
white
can
supremacy,
say-
and I just want
I'm
to
gonna
know where
go
they're
back-
at. That's
I'm
all.
going to quote the great SKC,
Oh, he is great.
who was quoting me. We need better white people. That will go a long way.
What's wrong with the white people we got?
Oh,
What's wrong with the white people we got?
well, I don't want to.
We
It
got
would
pretty
take
good
me.
white people
It would
today.
take me another show.
What?
But by and large, most white people I know are great. It's the
Most of them.
it's the Trumps and the DeSantises that are the problems.
Okay, let's delve into Trump.
It's
Okay,
your leaders.
how has Trump held blacks back? And don't give me that whole real estate thing, okay? Because
Okay, well that
that's his
doesn't count.
father, his father's
Being,
company.
being a race, no, Trump owned the buildings. He was a co-defendant in the suit.
So how did he hold black
Read the
people
New
back?
York Times. It's in the archive somewhere.
Someone you keep telling me to read stuff. You won't tell me
Well,
anything off the
if
top of
reading
your
is too
head.
difficult, I can
Give an
spoon feed it.
example. No, reading's not too difficult. I'm a software engineer. I've done a lot of
Well,
reading in
I've done
college.
plenty of
All
dumb
right.
software engineers.
So I know how to read.
Stanley.
I went
No,
to a
you know how to
PWI just
code.
like you did. I
You,
went to Texas
you know how to
A&M,
code.
the whitest university on the planet. I know how to read, sir.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Jeez.
Uh,
You keep bringing up these instances of, okay, you say Trump, and all you have to say is that real estate company he owned that one time at Bandcamp. I don't get it. What has he done today? What has he done as a president to held black people back? That would convince me not to vote for him on the next
Do
election.
you think that the only way white supremacy works is to hold people back?
There's another way it works? Tell me.
Okay, well, it would be too detailed
Of course you
to
won't tell
get
me,
into
'cause
now.
you don't
If
tell
white
me.
supremacy is murder, lynching, whatever, and holding people back,
In
then
2023.
maybe that's the disconnect.
In 2023, we're talking about today. We're not
I'm
talking
talking
about
today.
we're not talking about the Civil War.
I'm
We're
talking
talking about today. So who got lynched in 2023 by white people?
Oh dear. So if they don't get lynched, there's no white supremacy.
I didn't say that. I'm
Well,
asking you
you
for an
asked me.
example.
I say no one got lynched today. So
All right.
white supremacy has disappeared?
So where's white supremacy? If they're not lynching black people, what are they doing
Well,
today?
no.
Since
Your
we
point
agree
is
that they're not
if they're
lynching
not-
black people.
Okay.
What are they doing that's making them white supremacists?
I defined what white supremacy was in like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the show.
If you
I
can sum
suggest
it up
you
in
go-
one sentence, it'll be great.
I suggest you go back and start at the beginning. I lay out what white supremacy or what I think white
all right,
supremacy is.
guys. I think we've gone on for quite a while. 2 hours, 30 minutes.
We're
Stanley,
about to
it's
hit
been
the
great.
3 hour mark.
Oh, always great
Y'all-
talking with you.
Y'all wore me down.
It was a good
Sorry about
conversation,
that.
Stanley. It was a good
So-
conversation.
So I'll just say this before we leave. I think you guys have white people problem. I mean, that's the real white supremacy. You guys in the West, you have white people problem. Yeah, you have
Um,
enviable
I don't have a
problems.
white people problem.
I
You-
100
when
Dude.
I say you have white people problems, your problems are they're very enviable. I wish they were the sort of problems that we had because we have
you're
real
saying they're
problems.
first
right?
world problems?
Yeah, first world problems are white people problems.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
we have real
first world
problems. You guys.
Well, I agree with that, and to a certain extent, but it's always the rich people who whine the most.
Ergo Stanley.
However, no, it wouldn't
You rich, Stanley?
be.
Damn. If I known you were rich, I would
Stanley's
have dressed
elite.
you
Don't
properly.
you know Stanley is
Don't-
elite? He went to
I
elite,
don't have a
elite
problem.
high
No.
school.
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with the few. Uh, uh,
His Wi-Fi is not rich.
I have a problem with people ignoring the obstacles. Oh, get over it. The first time you say, oh, get over it, there's not really a problem. That's where I start kind of shaking my head. I think that not enough Black people are doing well, given our position in history.
But that's not white people's fault.
Um, did Black people invent white supremacy?
Here we go. There's no such thing as white
Just
supremacy,
going.
sir.
Okay, wait, hold it.
We're
Say that
going
again. There's no
down.
such
There's
thing as
no
white.
such thing as white supremacy.
Okay.
None.
Well, I'm done. I can't convince you that ghosts exist.
Why am I 43 and I haven't been hit with white supremacy?
Hey,
Am I
that's
blessed?
because you're
Am I
white.
touched by God? What? Where is this
Well,
white
no,
supremacy?
I think white supremacy hurts white people too.
The clue, you're white. You're white, don't you know?
Well, you want to know
no.
the perfect
No,
example of how white supremacy hurts white people?
Yes.
His name is Donald Trump.
Here we go.
You voted a racist in.
But he hasn't done anything racist in his presidency.
Trump is more stupid than he's racist, right?
He
Well,
hasn't done
no,
anything
but that
racist
doesn't
in
mean
his
he's not a racist.
presidency.
It just means stupid is the bigger problem.
He hasn't done anything racist in his presidency.
All
I'm
right,
not a
I think,
comedian. I don't know why you're laughing. I'm not a
I
comedian,
think
but he hasn't.
this would be a good place
Well,
to draw this
we
conversation
don't
to a
want
close.
people to do racist things while they're president. What happens
So,
before they were president doesn't matter.
It's a lot of racist
Yeah.
stuff going on now that we have this new president, but not with Trump.
Of course there is. He's a racist too.
So now that Trump is out of office, is it better in this country? Your opinion?
Not since he started trying to run for office again.
Well, he has no power running. I'm talking about.
I think he has plenty of power. He's not paying his legal bills, you know.
He doesn't have power over.
Well, no, he
The
has
federal
power
government.
enough not to pay his legal bills. The Republican National Committee's paying all his legal bills.
but that's not power. I mean, he.
Oh,
could
no,
be-
that's-
I'm talking about power.
Dude,
I'm
he could
I'm
pay.
talking about getting shit for
He's a
free. I'm talking
he's a
about
Tell
billionaire.
me
He could
that
pay that
being-
without the RNC. He
Okay,
could
you
still
don't
pay that.
understand power. Having millions of dollars to hire high-powered lawyers, that's
He's a
power.
billionaire. He
But
could
Jay-Z
afford that
has
without
that.
the RNC.
Kanye has that.
But they
They
didn't
don't
commit
have
the
power
crime
in the
Trump did,
government.
and they're not president. They have talent.
But my
Yeah,
question
and
was,
talent breaks power.
is this country better now that he's out of office? Because y'all band together and got rid of him, so we should
Yeah.
be living in
Have
a
you
paradise
noticed-
right now.
Have you noticed the unemployment numbers?
Is it going up or down?
Well, then you need to start reading a newspaper.
I'm
Don't be-
asking you.
Don't be. You will
I'm
find
asking
out.
you.
You will find out if the country is better
Why
by picking
why
up
doesn't
a
he answer
newspaper.
any of my questions, Charles?
No,
Because you're white.
I'm not. It is not my
Actually, a
job to
black
teach you
dude.
how to read.
You're white
Come on,
masquerading as black.
We
I'm
can't
not
have a
going to teach.
conversation if you don't
I'm
answer
not
any
going-
questions.
Not all conversations are worth having. Pick up a newspaper. You will know if the country's better.
Oh,
So
right,
unemployment, in your opinion, has gone down since Trump. We got rid of Trump and everybody got a
In
job.
my
right?
opinion,
In your foresight, or
no.
from
I
what you
just
know.
heard- I
From
just
what you
heard
know.
it from a newspaper.
So it went up or down?
Like
He's not going to answer. the question. Okay,
historically,
Charles, you can go ahead and end it.
historically low,
So unemployment's going down.
way lower than it was under Trump. The way we measure it, at least.
Oh, okay. So we don't have a problem
So,
with people
yes.
who don't want
Yes,
to work because
there,
they got a
there are
stimulus check.
more jobs.
We don't have a problem. We didn't
Therefore,
have a
America
problem
is
after
better.
COVID. People trying to, places like Love's Travel Center paying people to go tell somebody that they're hiring.
Okay, unemployment is lower.
Love said, "I'll give you $100. I'll give you two
See, this
hundred
is the
dollars
problem with
if
this
you tell
conservative
somebody
point
that
of
we're
view.
hiring and we hire
They
them.
don't
We'll
take
give you two hundred
answers.
dollars just for that." That's not a employment problem, and that
All
happened in
right.
Unemployment
2021.
I think
unemployment is lower,
we're,
therefore
we're, we're
America is
So
probably
better.
we're
you read
probably
the
going to do it.
newspapers. I'm actually out there because I'm a truck driver. I actually drive. I actually see what's going on in this country face to face.
Well,
All
to
these
use
people
that
hiring. Denny's closing down at 4 p.m. because they don't have anybody to work. So they're
to
just doing Uber Eats and
to
DoorDash,
use
and they're closing down their dime. You call that a good? You call that a good employment economy?
to
I
use
see
my
it.
dear
You read the
friend,
newspapers, but I see it face to fucking face.
my dear friend SKU had has given me the kind of ammunition that I will definitely have to thank him for. Do you know every Love's truck place in America? Have you been to them all?
I've
Have you
been
been to
to
every
pretty
Denny?
much half of them, from California to New
but
York.
not but not all of them.
Pilot, Petro,
All right,
TA,
guys. You guys will
all of them.
talk. You
Sheets,
guys will talk
all
till
of them.
dawn. But we have to end the stream.
Flying J, all of them.
The clue. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very very much for your
Let me know
voice.
when you get to
Thank
a
you too.
Wawa.
We really, I really
Wow,
appreciate
wow,
you.
wow. Yeah, I like that place too. I ain't gonna
And
lie, I like
Stanley
it.
as well. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Derek.
All
Thank you,
right.
John Small.
All right.
Thanks,
Take it
Wex,
easy, guys.
Melinda,
Thank you, Charles.
everyone.
Thank you, Stanley.
Yeah,
Talk to you next time. I enjoyed
we,
it.
we
All right.
always, we banter, we fight, but we love each other as well. There's no hard feelings here, and all that in all these conversations we do. So thank you. Like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in another live stream. So it's bye for now. Bye, guys.